What would you do if your phone rang tonight and the caller ID showed the name of someone you buried last week? Would you answer? Would you hang up? Or would you let it ring, terrified of what you might hear on the other end? This isn't just a horror story. It's a real case that researchers, phone companies, and even paranormal investigators still can't explain. And once you hear what happened, you'll understand why this mystery still haunts the internet and why experts say it could happen to any of us. In 2008, a young man named David Miller from Chicago lost the love of his life, Jennifer, in a sudden car accident. She was only 22. They were driving home after a night out when their car spun out of control. David survived, but Jennifer died instantly. Her family buried her with her favorite belongings, including her cell phone. For David, the grief was unbearable. 3 days after the funeral, he was sitting alone when his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. It was Jennifer's number. Think about that for a moment. The woman he loved was underground, her phone buried in the coffin, and yet the call was real. He picked up. Static. A faint voice. And then the sound of fingernails scraping wood. The line cut after 32 seconds. If you think that's creepy, wait. Because the calls didn't stop. They kept coming, and the longer they lasted, the worse they became. The next night, the phone rang again. Same number, same static. This time, David swore he heard sobbing, a broken, distorted version of Jennifer's voice, crying his name. Over the next week, he received over a dozen calls, each one traced back to Jennifer's cell phone. Each one filled with chilling, unnatural noises. Whispers, muffled banging, the eerie dragging sound, as if something heavy was moving underground. But here's the terrifying part. Phone records showed the calls were real. The telecom provider confirmed the signals came from Jennifer's registered SIM card. And yet, a phone cannot send signals from 6 feet under. It's physically impossible. So what was happening here? A technical glitch? A cruel prank? Or something much darker? Theory 1. Technical malfunction. Some skeptics argued that the number was spoofed. Modern tech allows anyone to fake caller IDs. But here's the problem. This was 2008. Spoofing was rare, expensive, and left digital fingerprints. None were found. Theory 2. Residual energy. Paranormal investigators proposed that Jennifer's emotional energy had imprinted itself on the phone. In other words, her grief, her sudden death, and her unfinished story charged the object, turning the cell phone into a conduit between worlds. Theory 3. The final goodbye. Others believe that Jennifer's spirit wasn't trapped, she wasn't calling for help. She was saying goodbye. The scratching wasn't from inside the coffin, but from the other side of reality, trying to reach him one last time. And this is where things get even scarier. Because David wasn't the only one. Phone. In 1979, several families reported calls from deceased relatives right after funerals. Phone. In 1994, a man in England received multiple messages from his dead wife's answering machine even though the line had been disconnected. Phone. In 2003, a Japanese study documented over 50 reports of phantom calls during anniversaries of tragic deaths. The pattern is always the same. A recently deceased person. Their phone number. A grieving loved one receiving impossible messages. Coincidence? Or evidence of something beyond science? If you think this is just urban legend, ask yourself, why do some telecom companies have internal reports on phantom calls, reports they never release to the public? David kept receiving calls for weeks, but one night the calls stopped. The last one lasted almost 2 minutes. Static. Whispers. And then, clear as day, Jennifer's voice. I love you. Goodbye. Silence. The number never appeared again. Today, the case remains unsolved. Scientists dismiss it as a hoax. Paranormal experts point to it as one of the clearest proofs of communication beyond the grave. But here's the real question. What would you do if it happened to you? Would you answer the call? Or let it ring, knowing it might be the last goodbye? Next time your phone rings at 3 a.m., look at the name on the screen. Because sometimes the dead don't stay silent. Sometimes they call back.